Welcome to Just a Thought, a podcast for women who've turned self reflection into a lifestyle. Around here, we get into the messy stuff mental health, connection, and the daily chaos of being a human. It's kind of like therapy, but with some sarcasm and fewer copays. I'm your host, Pia James, and every week we'll obsess over one subject we know best ourselves. Because if you're going to spiral, why not make it about yourself? This is Just a Thought. Welcome to Just a Thought. I'm your host, Pia, and today we have editorial strategist and social media guru, Alexa Phillips, who examines the future of media through the lens of identity and culture.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Thank you for being here with us today and getting through the kinks, honey. Okay, I appreciate you just willing to just dive in here with me. So, can you give me a brief snapshot of how social media affects general mental health in today's society?
Yeah, to premise this, I am not, a mental health therapist or like a mental health professional, but just kind of from observation with my own social media usage and how I see it with people in my community. And I think it really does affect the self-esteem of a lot of people, especially kind of in the society that we live in. Everyone is so influenced by, oh, if I'm not, shopping at certain places or owning certain products or taking these luxury vacations, I'm a failure in life. And I think it's also causing a lot of burnout too, especially for people who are posting and wanting to keep up with everything, especially also business owners too, who think they have to create content to sell their products and services. I know burnout is a huge conversation point that a lot of people talk about, especially trying to stay on the hamster wheel of consistently posting content and then not seeing the results that they want from it, whether it's more sales or more followers or just more engagement in general. So I think there's a lot of different mental health angles, both from a burnout perspective and then kind of from a self-esteem identity perspective as well.
Yes, honey, because these social media streets get a little crazy. And when I tell you the peoples be going through stress, I hate people saying, oh, I'm not getting views. How can I ask AI so I can get views? They go on there for mental health tips. Hey, can somebody tell me a best therapist? Or can you give me resources? I'm stressed out for today. Or can you clap for me? I'm having a bad day. So people go to social media for any and everything. And I'm like, okay, y'all, be careful, be mindful of the people you're asking information from. We don't know this individual who's going through something. And yes, we all want to be seen and felt and heard in this earth, but we have to be a little bit more mindful. Are there particular features or trends that you notice that spikes different certain stress levels or comparison?
I would say, even just speaking from personal experience, just I feel low views or staying in that TikTok 100, 300 view jail, I feel like stresses a lot of people out, especially if they're looking to grow accounts and things like that, where people are like, okay, well, clearly something about my content's not hitting. Like, what can I change to get out of 200 view jail and appease the algorithm? So I think kind of like the low view counts, I feel are definitely something that stresses a lot of people out. I also think too, if you are at a certain stage of your life and you're seeing friends, family, or your peers kind of achieving milestones that you wish you had achieved, whether it's a weight loss milestone, buying a house, having a kid, getting married, whatever those milestones kind of are, I think a lot of people will get stressed out kind of by seeing that stuff as well, and kind of feeling they're behind when in reality they're just on their own timeline and everything. So I think social media, when they say it's a highlight reel, it really is, because you don't know all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Even friends I have where they'll post stuff and then you talk to them and they're like, yeah, I'm actually really struggling right now with XYZ thing. And so it just goes to show that people want everybody else to think like their life is so great when and when everyone is just struggling, the rest of us are.
You know what? I blame this on the billionaires boy club. You know, they want to create this whole limelight of look at me, I'm a billionaire and I'm doing all these wonderful things. So hate yourself. That's essentially
Yeah,
what
I
they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can even for a more relatable, even like the influencers who now, the more they've grown, the more kind of out of touch they've been feeling. I don't know if you followed any of the drama with Jaclyn Hill or that on TikTok, where a lot of people are saying that basically her posts are so out of touch and she's complaining that she's getting a fraction of the views that she used to get and everything. So it's just kind of this like out of touch where people aren't living in reality. And like reality now is that a lot of people, especially with the economy, are struggling. A lot of people are unemployed or underemployed, really struggling to pay their bills and pay their rent and all of that stuff. And so I think it's while wanting to like live this life that they see, like of, oh, I need to buy all this stuff from Sephora or I need to go on this luxury vacation. Things that are just like unrealistic for the everyday person.
Right. Now, do you remember that show on MTV, Underemployed?
Well, I never actually watched it. It wasn't like a show that I actually watched.
Girl, you're gonna have to watch it. I remember when it came out, it came out at the perfect timing. It was basically like Friends, but it was 6 of them, and they were just getting out of college, starting their careers, trying to figure out what they were gonna do. Some were underemployed because that's the name of the theme of the show. Some were employed, and some were just still trying to figure out, like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to be? I have this degree, but do I really want to go pursue this? It came at a perfect time because all of my friends can see themselves in those characters, and we would crack up, and it gave us such relief that we didn't have to have it figured out. It was okay. Yes, it got stressful when somebody got into like a big fashion house company or something like that, or on Wall Street, and be like, "Oh my God, how'd you get in there? Can you tell me?" So yes, we go through that too, but it just gave us a sense of validation that this is okay and that this is normal. It's not an out of body experience. That is not a normal to experience this. Like you don't really have to see the different advertisings that's pushing you to think that perfection is the actual way because it essentially it causes burnout. Um, I know that you're always on social, especially TikTok, but you're always comparing like what's the way of the future, what is happening with the algorithms. You're letting your audience know what is coming in the present and what is to come. So how do you see that the algorithm is basically pushing certain people and pigeonholing others? Is it based on advertising dollars? Is it based on popularity or etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm kind of like battling this myself, especially since TikTok kind of changed hands at the end of January with like kind of like the US like having some control of ownership over it. Again, I've noticed there's been huge drops in like my reach and ever to like I'm definitely caught in like 2 to 300 view jail right now on my own personal content. But one of my
Same.
clients who yeah, right. And one of my clients, she and I were talking about this this week, and she said, and I'll have to double check and confirm this, but now the way that algorithm is working, especially on TikTok, is it's pushing it to your followers first. And then if it is landing, then it goes broader than that. Um, and hits the For You page. So I think we're kind of just like at the mercy of the algorithms. And I think it just has to do with popularity and the velocity and just like engagement if people are watching your videos through I don't really know. I'm not a complete expert on how TikTok exactly works and everything. I'm still experimenting on it from my own lens and everything, but I think at least the videos I've noticed of mine that have popped off, it's been kind of like people just watching it, reposting it, engaging with it, and I think that's the velocity that had made it hit the For You page. Because after a certain threshold, I would say between 5 and 10,000 views is when it's like, "Okay, let's hit the For You page."
Now I'm gonna ask this question because if I don't, the girlies is gonna get me. The question is, how do you outbeat the bots? Because whether it's on TikTok, Threads, Instagram, you name it, essentially they all the same. Like they're owned by different companies, but it's all the same exclusive club, and they're controlling the algorithm. But how do you control bots? Because essentially you can have followers that are not real followers; they're just robots. They come into your lives, they engage with you on your lives as if they are real human beings, but it's actually a bot. So, is there a way around that? Are they talking about that in the social media lens? What is your take?
I mean, from a social media lens, I don't know if there's any way to beat that, but if you want to have more ownership over your audience, get off of rented land. Like that is my biggest piece of advice. My background is in long form. I also have a newsletter. So anytime I tell people like you want to have ownership, get a newsletter, get a podcast, get something where you have a more direct line with your audience so you aren't subject to algorithms. Because at the end of the day, if you're building on rented land, you're kind of just a serf in like medieval terms, and you're kind of dealing with the landlords and the overlords of these platforms, and they determine how the algorithm is formed and who what kind of content is going to appeal to people, how velocity works on that platform and everything. So the way to beat the game is to just get off the game and just get like build an audience where you are having that more direct relationship with your audience, long form sense. Because like I said, I've even noticed since TikTok changed hands, my views have dipped so much, and I haven't really changed that much with the way I structure my content or the length of my content. It's just kind of, I think, just the way the algorithm is working right now.
I will say that I appreciate threads. Like threads is kind of essentially like long form because you can put videos, sure, but it's really just
Mhm.
writing and connecting with people. And I love that feel of it. I know how you feel about Substack, but and even even though Substack has been changing, they need to fix their algorithm because they're starting to get very like TikTok-ish with like videos popping up. But that's also part of the long form, and I love that you get to write a newsletter, you can do notes, you can write a poem. You're not restricted of what you can do on there, and you can come across many of different people of different various of genres. So I love that. And I loved how you touched on the fact of the highlight reels of the influencers, see my life in the parasocial lane, because those industries, whether you're an influencer in beauty or luxury high living, when it comes to self care, they're not really consumed with the consumer's emotional wellness besides getting the dollar. It reminds me of like the Hungry Hungry Hippo. Have you ever played that game?
Yeah, yeah.
And like they're trying to crunch everybody. Like there's a TikTok, there's an Instagram. Each one of them is a hippo, and they're just trying to grab your attention and they're trying to grab your coins. Those are the companies essentially grabbing your attention to double the balls to get your money. And so, but I love that you mentioned that. Um, so how do you feel about us going into the parasocial? Because that's been a major thing 2026 with they want to feel very relatable to their audience and they're pushing this I'm connected to you, but I'm not connected to you. You're my BFF, but you're essentially not my BFF. This illusion of you have access to me via through a screen.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I think that we kind of confuse what parasocial actually means. Parasocial, if you look at the definition, it's a one-way relationship between you and somebody else. But I think what a lot of brands are trying to do is they're kind of trying to build a two-way relationship that's like more community focused, as opposed to I'm just going to broadcast all my messages to you and I'm not going to really, and you're not going to really get to have input. Now I think a lot of brands are going more of the community route where they are trying to have more of a two-way relationship with their audiences, whether it's through in real life events or communities on Slack or Discord or something like that, where people at the company, whether it's community managers or other stakeholders, can interact directly with people who use the products and things like that. So I think we're seeing a lot of it too, from first person. And that can go into another point when I'm done with this one.
Hmm.
But I think we are kind of moving more into like that two-way community, as opposed to like one-way parasocial. That said, I've also been seeing a big shift in kind of like first person versus ghost written narratives, especially with celebrities. I'm sure you've seen it. A lot of celebrities have started to get on Substack, like anybody from, like the
Yes.
Obamas to Charlie XCX. It's interesting when you think about it because these artists and these figures are used to having everything ghost written for them. And now it's the first time we're really seeing them kind of have first person narrative and sharing that narrative with audiences as opposed to just like having their teams make a statement or write something on their behalf. And so I think that's super interesting, kind of that shift from ghost written to that first person narrative to kind of build a more like personal relationship between fans and the creator.
Now, do you think that it's still not in my mind, how I'm thinking is it's still being ghostwritten? Is this broken down in many steps? So Monday you're gonna talk about this, Tuesday you're gonna talk about that. So you think that it's actually Michelle Obama. We're just using Michelle as an example, not hypothetically saying this is her. But back to your point of like Michelle, so do you think that these celebrities are writing these one-on-ones?
I mean, I think it depends on the person. I personally haven't read her, like her.
Yeah,
I've
that's the
read
we're not
Charlie.
yeah, we're not picking out Michelle.
I've read Charlie XCX's though, and it sounds like it's very much like her voice and her way of writing it, and like that way, and I think that you can kind of just tell if you're basically on her email list for her concert stuff. It sounds very different than like the vulnerability and the storytelling that she has on her Substack. So I think it could very much be very well written, or maybe they're giving talking points or doing a first pass and their publicist or whoever is doing that. But like, I don't know.
I will say who we know is not being edited is Cardi B, because when sis wants to say something, she be like, "This is what I'm about to say today." You're getting a mouthful. So I want to let us shift over to wait before we actually do that. You mentioned Slack. Now, Slack has always been a CRM for corporations to have like work connection. They've now made it into social media.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm consulting, a lot of the groups that I'm a part of are like actually just Slack communities. Corporations have used it as internal comms of like,
Right.
oh, let's just like do that. But a lot of people have turned to using it as a more community platform of like, oh, let's have different like channels devoted to different types of things. Like I'm in a Slack community now called Growth Tribe, and it's all for like fractional marketers. And so they have different channels like, oh, getting help on like a proposal or getting help on like a consulting question or resources or whatever it might be to kind of like connect people in that way. So like I think a lot of people are using it outside of the traditional corporate context to kind of build community. I know there are other more community centric platforms like Patreon or like Circle or I think like Teachable also has like some community aspect, but I know a lot of people have like defaulted to like Slack or Discord to kind of build out a community for their community or their brand.
Yeah, I didn't. I always knew it was for corporations. So that's interesting. But I want to circle back to breaking down social media into their respective genres. And we're going to talk about the millennials first, and then we'll go all the way down to our baby cubs, our little alphas. So, for when it comes to the millennials, you know, some of us, half of us grew up on social media, half of us didn't because social media was starting to be something new. So, how do you see that their engagement is different from the younger generation?
Yeah, I think now, I feel millennials, at least like me, my friends, the way we kind of use it is like we kind of use it as a way to keep up with people, but not necessarily use it as a crutch. We're not like, oh, we need to document every second of our lives, like on our Instagram story or share what we're doing. It might just be a story here or there, but it's not like every single cool thing that we're doing, like we document. Same thing with the feed. I know people who haven't posted on the feed, some of my friends, in months or even years. Same thing with Instagram stories. Maybe they'll post once a month, some random thing, but a lot of the connection is really for meant to be offline. And even like texting, communicating, things like that. It's not like, oh, we're constantly texting each other. It's like, okay, like let's text and make a plan so we can get off of like these digital channels and get in person. Um, I think also just the types of social media too. I think millennials, especially elder millennials, are still kind of on that Facebook, Instagram train versus, doing more TikTok. I know a lot of my friends are more team reels versus TikTok for short form content, and everything. So I think that's kind of what I see, at least with millennials, where it's like, yes, we grew up with social, but we kind of are also wanting to really get off of it and like really just live a IRL experiences because we kind of know how to do that. We haven't
Hmm.
had to have that crutch.
Yes, honey. We know connection. We want to go out. We want to touch things in a store. Okay, we want to walk down
We're
the
not the
lane.
type to we're not the type to, like, if we are interested in somebody, get their Snapchat and start snapping them. We're gonna get your phone number, not your Instagram. Like, maybe we'll follow you on Instagram, but it's not like we're gonna be Instagramming, DMing you. We're gonna be texting you or calling you on your actual phone.
Right. We want to see how you sound on the phone. Okay. We want to know your
Yeah.
lived experience. We don't want to see your filtered six packs. Okay. We want to be up
Yes.
in your face because we want to know. And I love that about our generation that we still value connection and the human experience of getting to know people on an IRL level. So I really do love that about our generation. And I kind of feel a little bit sad about the younger generation because you constantly see them just everybody's heads down and it's texting and it's going to the point where they could be crossing the street and their heads never look up. And that is very scary.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is I've written some pieces around how millennials are kind of becoming in more positions of power because like elder millennials now are early 40s and they're becoming, directors and VPs and basically setting the scene. And what I've noticed is they're trying to recreate the landscape that we had at the peak where it's like, oh, the physical media, oh, the in real life experiences. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot more of that stuff making a comeback because it was really kind of in my opinion, the golden age of communication where it was all of that and trying to recreate it for these younger generations because these younger generations are also becoming more receptive to it, wanting to invest more in analog and physical media and getting offline and things like that. And millennials are kind of just orchestrating those experiences for the younger generation.
Yes. In New York, it's this little coffee shop where they had to put up no cell phones.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle's not like the no cell phones, but there have been some places that I've gone to that limit laptops, or on certain days they're like, oh, yeah, this is a laptop free thing, or they just don't have Wi Fi. So you can't bring your computer. So you either are there to talk with somebody or you're there to do something offline, whether it's like read or write or whatnot. So I have seen a few more coffee shops and places do that too to encourage that connection.
But the funny thing was when this coffee shop did this, people were well, the younger folks, they were getting upset, but all the millennials was just packing the house to the point where they was like, "We're not changing anything," because they had a line to come into their coffee shop. So, I'm
Yeah,
here for it.
I mean, there's so many coffee shops too. Like even me, if I want to go somewhere to work with my computer, I just know not to go to the one that doesn't have Wi-Fi. I'm just not going to go here. So it's not like you can never find another place to go to again.
Right. Um, hmm, I will say Gen Z spends the most time scrolling, as you know. What patterns are most concerning for their well-being?
Yeah, I've actually been talking with a lot of experts kind of in this field for an article that I'm writing.
Mhm.
And a lot of it's around kind of that self-esteem, but also getting fragmented pieces of information. For example, I was talking with somebody who is a sex educator, and you probably are familiar with like Care and Keeping of You from American Girl, that book that was the institution for, personal hygiene and puberty for young women. Now you're not getting that single source of truth and that single source of information. You're getting something so fragmented. The gal I had talked to, she said, you could have people in the same class in school getting three different, very different opinions and pieces of information on the same topic. And so it's really, I think, from a mental health perspective, I think that could be really damaging where if you have a concern or something like that and you're not getting the correct information or a single source of truth, um, I think that's super concerning, but I also think the whole self-esteem and issue and everything too because I don't know if you've noticed, but middle schoolers now aren't ugly. We all went through that ugly duckling phase, where we were kind of just trying to figure out our style and we didn't have influencers to look up to of, oh, what are the hottest items we should be putting on our Christmas list or the things we should be buying. And I think it really removes that identity exploration component that you have when you're growing up and when you're a teenager of being able to, oh, let me check out these CDs or this magazines or these books and kind of figure out what I'm into without somebody else be telling me what I should be into. And a lot of times too, from social, we're already getting the perspectives of that somebody else's experience versus experiencing
Mhm.
something for ourselves and creating that opinion for ourselves.
Right. because do you remember this device where you can have a journal, but it was a device?
Oh, the
It was
live
like,
journal?
hello, we had some of the best gadgets, okay? And
Oh,
on
yeah, we
top of
really
that,
did. Like, I still miss my pink iPod Nano. I loved my iPod Nano, and I loved it up until I got, like, an iPhone, and it was just so great. Now I would kill to have a physical iPod again.
listen, honey, okay? Remember we had the cameras wasn't even high quality as it is right
I
now
always
on
had
cell phones.
I had 3 I had Nikon Coolpixes that was I probably ended up breaking 2 or 3 of them, but I always had a little Nikon Coolpix digital camera that I would carry around with me everywhere, being the photographer of the group, and now it's funny seeing people who are Gen Z kind of rediscovering those, and I'm like, "Honey, I had this when I was a teenager, like 10 plus years ago."
Yes. So I'll never forget, my girlfriend and I, we went thrift shopping within our
Mhm.
community. Every year they have this thing where it's like other people are selling their stuff. And so we brought her daughter along with us. And so she was going to FIT. Her hobby is photography. Her mother was like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy you a camera." So we go to the stand and her mom picks up a camera for her, but it's the old school version with the Polaroid where you have to put the big tape in. She
Yeah.
was like, "What the heck is this? This is not a camera." Like her mother was so excited to give her this experience, and she killed the whole moment because she complained about where she was going to find film and all these different things, right? She gets to school, and all the girls have the camera that she has. Now she comes back home and she's like, "Mom, where's that camera that you got me over the summertime?" I said, "Oh, so now you want it because the girls at school have it, huh?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's been fun. I'm like a hobbyist photographer myself, and my mom a couple Christmases ago gave me this film camera that she basically took all of my childhood pictures on from all the way up until 2005 when she got her first digital camera. And so it's been super fun to just film and get it developed and really work on the composition because you don't have 50 frames you can take. You kind of just have to pick and choose your
Right.
moments because a roll of film has 36, 38 exposures. And so you're like, okay, I got to really pick and choose what I'm going to take pictures of. So that's been super fun for me. And it's so fun getting like physical photos back and just flipping through them.
Generational alpha is growing up digital first. Are there unique risks for children exposed to social media so early?
Oof. Yeah, I mean, I know I kind of touched on some of it. I think really big in the identity formation aspect of it. But also I think with yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about Gen A, because they're so young and everything, but I think there's a lot of concerns around just giving kids experiences where it's going to force them to play outside and force them to do all of these things. And so I think that's a super interesting thing to deal with. And just, and kind of building those boundaries for parents too, where it's okay, what are we going to let our kids watch? And kind of really building that understanding. For this article I've been working on, I talked with some parents and they were talking about like, okay, we need to kind of have an open mind when it comes to the media that our like young like our early teenagers are consuming and everything and not be so quick to write it off but just look at it and do that. But I also think there's a media literacy component as well where it's like, okay, is this person actually promoting or pushing a product or are they like actually giving knowledgeable information? So I think having that literacy of what is actual genuine information and is it credible or is somebody just trying to sell me something.
Yes, I remember. I think it was Lifetime. Wait, before I get to that, though, let me get to this part. Do you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is?
Yeah, Gary Vee, yep.
He just did an interview with CBS. Did you watch that interview? The clippets of it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you like a brief overview. In this snippet, he basically says that he grew up, you know, poor, and he's basically self-made. His parents told him to go outside and just have this wonderful life. That parents today is essentially it's their fault why their children are addicted to social media. Essentially is what he was saying. He was
Yeah.
like, you don't discipline your child. They don't get beatings no more. They're not being held accountable. Then you reward them by giving them a device. So if
Yeah.
anybody has a problem with social media, it really should fall back on the parent and not the tech gurus who
Yeah, I mean,
created
I
it.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm not a parent myself, and I want to become one, but I think just from what I've seen, everyone is, the gentle parenting and from observation, instead of spending time with your kids or encouraging your kids, it's like, oh, let's just throw them in front of a device. And I think that's a lazy method of figure out what they want to do and like actually give them a way to like explore things and like add that friction essentially. Instead of like, oh, let's just give them screen time.
I kind of agreed and disagreed with him. I agree that parents are rewarding bad behavior. I agree that essentially this kid has this technology because you gave them the device. But where I disagree is the parent did not know the harm behind this device that they were giving their children. The people who created it knew, not the parent. So how can you say that the full responsibility is on a parent when they wasn't given all the information? When I'm given all the information, then I can make a sound judgment of if I should let my kid have this or not. But if you were withholding information that this is going to create mental health challenges, comparison, bulimia, bullying, you name it, then I'm at a disadvantage as a parent. So I understood what he was trying to do, but at the same time, don't throw back the responsibility on the parent when the government knew what was going to happen, that they should have put legal ramifications to protect teenagers. Because so many teenagers are dealing with suicide ideation, they're dealing with self esteem issues, and again, we were bullied before, right? Like, don't get me wrong, we have been bullied. Our generation has been bullied, but it's not to the extent of what these younger kids are going through at the level of degree of constantly walking around with it in their pocket. You went to school, you got bullied, you went home, your life was fine, right? You were separated from the thing that was intimidating you. But they are no longer being separated from the thing that is intimidating them. Therefore, it is causing a level of harm. So my question is, in your field of work and editorial, do you see any language happening around awareness for parents to help facilitate their children in a better manner?
I mean, I've seen just some like professionals who are kind of trying to make it their mission to do more media literacy stuff and just having that education start pretty young. I'd say middle school age, if not sooner. And kind of just and I think it's parents participating too. They're trying to be more aware and participating more and kind of having more open dialogue with kids around the stuff that they're consuming to not make it feel the kids have to hide what they're watching or anything like that, but so parents can kind of understand like, okay, is this somewhat decent for my child to watch and everything. So I think that's at least what I'm hearing from a couple of the professionals that I have talked to who are dealing with stuff that I think it's just that education part of it that people have never really thought to do before and now I think needs to be done because media consumption is starting at such a young age and everything and just really building that in.
To the young teenager who is watching this and that's loving your content and what you do, what would you say to her right now?
Oof, that's tough. I mean, I would say don't be afraid to do things on your own terms because eventually it's gonna become a superpower for yours. Like, for me, even growing up, I always felt weird being kind of like not the odd one out, but just not mainstream, and the older I've gotten, the more I've realized it is kinda like a superpower to not be everybody else because you are noticed in that way because you have a personality and you have, things that make you interesting that not everybody is consuming, and it's okay to consume stuff or lie into some products that people are doing, but you can't make it a copycat of your entire personality of what you see everybody else on social doing. So like don't be afraid to chase your interests because in a society where everything is so homogeneous and the same, that's what's going to make you stand out and really help you build taste.
So just walk me through young Alexa. Like, what was she doing? What was she wearing? What was she into? What was her favorite music? Okay, you knew we grew up on pop
Okay.
stars, girls, girl groups. So what
Yeah.
was your favorite girl bands?
Yeah, so we will go all the way back. I think I started consuming like I got a CD player when I was 9 years old, I think I remember for Christmas that year. And some of my very first CDs were Hilary Duff's Metamorphosis. So I've been an OG Hilary Duff fan forever. And then
Okay, Hillary.
Kelly Clarkson's sophomore album. I can't remember was it called Breakaway? I can't, or like her title album. It was the one with
Yeah.
Breakaway as one of the tracks. So I remember those 2 albums were super formative for me. And then as I like kind of continued on in middle school, I started discovering a lot more music. So I would literally go to the library because my family would go to the library every single week. And so I would be like, reading magazines that they had on the shelf. So it'd be like the recent issues of, 17 and J14 and Teen Vogue and all of those. And then checking out CDs for artists that I had maybe heard people at school talk about or just kind of wanted to explore on my own. And so I would burn copies of these CDs for my CD player and then like start making mixtapes and things like that. But, in middle school, I was so into just so many just different creative fields. Like at one point I wanted to be a fashion designer. So I started getting really into fashion illustration and sketching. At one point I wanted to be a photographer or like architect or just like something in a creative field. So I was kind of experimenting a lot with like that. So like a lot of drawing, a lot of photography. I've always had a camera in my hand. And then kind of moving into high school, I did a lot with in that realm. I always kind of knew I wanted a creative career. I did yearbook for 3 of my 4 years in high school. So a lot in that creative field. I was very into my art classes and everything like that. And I eventually kind of settled on journalism after watching this show. It was this one season show, I think on the CW called Stylista, where essentially the prize was for the winner of the show to work at Elle magazine and doing magazine layouts, and I thought that was the coolest thing. That was a dream job I wanted. So I eventually went into fashion journalism when I was in college and everything, and that was always so fun. I really wanted to write for W. It didn't really end up happening because now but a lot of my background is in tech, B2B SaaS, but fashion still kind of remains a passion of mine. But I always just follow my curiosity. And I think I'm finding a lot of the things that I loved when I was like a teenager in college coming back around again. Me getting much more into like, photography and back into journalism and writing and just creating content, storytelling, and all of that stuff.
I find that interesting that your childhood essentially was circling around what your adulthood was gonna be. Like,
Yeah.
that
And
level of
yeah,
creativity. Yeah.
yeah, well, and what's interesting too is I have the biggest theory that when we are teenagers, we're the most authentic versions of ourselves because, like, maybe us as millennials, I can't really speak to Gen Z or Gen A, but we didn't have those outside influences kind of telling us who we should be, what we should wear, how we
Mhm.
should act, what hobbies we should have. We kind of explored that on ourselves. And when I find so many people, the older they get, especially as they near 30 or in their 30s, they're really just going back to all the things they loved doing as a kid and going back to the hobbies or interests that they had. And they're finding so much more joy and fulfillment. And a lot of times it's a career switch too, because, in your 20s, you're kind of chasing oh my gosh, I need to climb the corporate ladder, get the best job. And then you eventually, maybe 10 years in, you're like, yeah, like I did the girl boss thing and now I don't want to do the girl boss thing anymore. I want to do something that like makes me happy.
Yes, honey. Between 18 and 29, that's your most seasonal fuck up moments of your life that you can ever
Yeah.
have. Like, you have to allow yourself to just play because you've never been a adult. This is your first time learning what adult life is for you. So you have to do this whole trial and error. And like you said, when you get 30, then that's where you're like, okay, I've done a lot of these things. So now I kind of want to create my own schedule and say where I get to have leisure or not and things that I will or will not do. Now, I will say, I never painted. Well, I was always coloring as a kid, but I'm still trying to figure out how I got to be a writer, child. I don't know. I'm like, maybe.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, writing, it was interesting because I always had kept a journal. And for me, I at still one point want to be like a fiction writer. That's still like a goal of mine to like write a book. But, like, getting more into, like, the journalism, like, writing side of things, I think it was because I wanted to write for magazines, and that's kinda how I got on the more, like, commercial side of writing versus, like, the creative side of writing, and everything, and now, like, all these years later, it's just like, "Oh, let me find the story, let me, like, do all this." So it's so interesting how it, kind of evolved, but I think, like, my consumption of magazines was a huge part of that.
Listen, I'm gonna say for me, definitely, I was a journaler. So what led me to writing, my coach always says, you got to write in Pia because you love journaling. Writing a book is no different. It's the same thing. It's the thing that you like doing the most because that's the thing that allows you to be yourself. You don't have to be correct. You get to be free in that moment. And I had to think about that. I was like, that is so true. I think that's probably why I'm sorry. I know you hate so step, but girl, I be on it because okay, no one is judging me. I don't care what you
The
think
act
about
of
it.
writing, I don't hate the act of, like, writing, I just hate the platform as, like, a
Right.
tech
You
platform,
want the
whatever,
ownership part of it.
I'm like, "Write a newsletter, write a blog, I don't care." I'm like I
Right.
tell people, I'm like, "There is no right or wrong way," because everyone's like, "Oh, how do you start a blog? Like, how do you" I'm like, "Just start writing and make it good later," you know? Because I think the hardest thing for people to have courage is to just press publish in the first place because everyone's like, "Oh, well, what if it's gonna suck? What if people hate it? What if all this stuff?" And it's like, well, what if they love it? You don't know until you actually publish something. And I think for a lot of people for me, publishing on the internet, I'm like, it doesn't scare me. It's never scared me. And so it's so interesting when people have that hesitation, but y'all need the audacity because if you don't have audacity or courage to put yourself out there, and you want to be a creator, like no one's going to read your work if you don't put yourself out there.
That is so true. Since you led us to this moment, how do people cope with the mental games of going viral?
It's very I will say having had one video that's hit over 1,000,000 views, at first, I did not know what to do with myself. It was super overstimulating, because I'm the type of person where people comment on my stuff, I wanna engage in the comments or, like, acknowledge the comment or whatever, and so just seeing everything pour in, I was like, "Okay, I need to, like, not constantly check because I wanna be able to keep up with this and do that." So it was just very overstimulating to see the inbox be crazy, but eventually it kinda, like, tapered down, I was able to manage it and everything, but I think the mental health portion that's tough is especially if people are commenting that, they disagree with what you said or they're kind of attacking you or trolling you or whatever the case might be. Like, I think that's hard. But I think if you're putting out content that is, factually sound, you actually have sources you can back up your work. It's having that self-trust to know, okay, I can stand on my own 2 feet and I'm not going to let the internet kind of steamroll me. And it's really just empowering yourself to, if somebody is backlashing, just say, hey, thanks for bringing this up. Like, I'd be happy to share my sources with you. And sometimes that usually shuts people up where they're like, oh, well, this person can actually prove there is backing to what they said, and everything. But I think at the end of the day, it's like really just having self trust in what you say and just kind of like taking it one moment at a time. Because once you have your first viral video, if you have another one, you're like, okay, I'm used to this by now. But I think it just depends on the audience engagement you want to have as well. So if you want to be that person to respond to comments and respond to stuff, give yourself some time to do that. Cause I know so many people who have viral videos and I don't comment on a lot of people's videos, but when I do, a lot of times my comments don't even get acknowledged. And I'm like, okay, well, if you want to be a creator, you also have to build a community and acknowledge people's comments and reply to them and engage with them and stuff like that.
If somebody is saying something I disagree with, I just give them a heart. Thank
Yeah.
you for
Yeah.
engaging with me.
Yeah, I just say, "Oh, thank you so much for this perspective," like, and then I acknowledge it and because obviously, like, and the comments are kind of a great place too, especially if you get a lot of them, because a lot of people bring in different perspectives that you might have not considered in your original video or your original piece of content, and so kind of it's a learning experience for the creator as well of like, "Oh, I never thought of this perspective. Thank you to this person for bringing that to my attention." So I think even just acknowledging it, "Oh, thanks for bringing this up. I didn't consider that."
Let me tell you, I'll never forget when I first got onto TikTok, because that was the first social media that I was like, okay, let me start here. Everybody kept saying, it's so easy. And I'm so excited because I'm like, oh, I want people to engage. I want to be able to help them. My brain is all about making self-reflection a lifestyle. And the first person that said something, I was like, oh, um, I made my little exit to her and she was like, are you a therapist? Are you a licensed professional? And I'm like, I'm not diagnosing you. I'm just saying that what you were going through sounds like this. And here's some tips to help you get through this problem. And then she proceeds to tell me that now she's a therapist. So I'm like, okay, well, then you should understand that this was correct. If you're a therapist, then you know. So
Yeah,
now
yeah, it
she's trolling me, right? She had somebody else like reach out to me and thinking I was going to comment. And I didn't even respond to her. I just said, thank you. So then she goes, well, why didn't you answer the other person? I was like, was I supposed to? I didn't know I had to.
interesting some of the comments I'll get on some videos. Like, a lot of people, weirdly enough, attack my editing style of all things. They're like, "Oh, well, why do you have so many jump cuts and blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "Because I'm not here to be an expert in making TikTok videos. I'm sharing information. That's what I want to be on here for." So it's funny when people attack that, or they try to argue with you, but their argument has no footing. And I did a video on Substack, and a lot of the comments I got, it's like, "Well, you just hate it because you haven't spent enough time on the platform." And I'm like, that's not a good argument. Like, nobody is going to say they hate a platform because they haven't spent time on a platform. If you want to engage, add something useful to the conversation. Otherwise, why are you commenting in the first place? Just to get attention?
That is the truth. People are commenting just to get attention. Seriously.
But yeah, like, if you're going to comment on my editing style, my videos, you really think I'm going to actually acknowledge that and pay attention to like what you say about my editing style? Like, okay, great.
That's why when they do it to me, I'm like, okay, you get a heart today. You just need some love. I'm
I think
okay.
it's just
I'm
like the
not going
passive
to.
aggressive. I think it's just like the passive aggressive where it's like, "Oh, okay." Like, but yeah, it's very just interesting. One time I on Threads, I got a reply. I had said something like comparing AI to the color beige, and this girl comments and she goes, "Oh, well, like, you just don't like the color beige cuz you can't wear it or something like that." I'm like, "That is the weirdest like, I'm like, A, I can't wear beige because also I don't look good in beige because of my coloring, but just for somebody to say something, I'm like, "What?" This is funny.
Telling you, I live for the comments because yes,
But yeah, especially
sometimes
the
they
ridiculous
say,
ones. I'm just like,
yes,
"What?" I'm like, it's like men when they have lines on their, like, dating apps or, like, messaging people. Do you hear yourself when you talk or, like, read what you say back to yourself?
right. I'm like, okay, you need to decompress, huh? Okay, I
Again,
guess I'm a
which
target.
again, yeah, I think with social media, it's just the public forum and everything, and I think you can't let it get to you, like, especially if you wanna be a presence on there, you can, and just have to roll it off because these people have nothing else better to do than just bother you and prey on somebody who they think is gonna falter and everything, so it is a mentally strong game, but at the end of the day, like, if you have footing, if you know what you're talking about, if you're an expert in your field, you shouldn't have anything to worry about.
Right. Just check off you as a creator because you're on it all the time. How do you mentally detox and get back into your reality?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of social media detox. I bought a brick last fall and it has been the best thing. So I will brick my phone most days from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So I'm not late night scrolling. And then on the weekends I'll do from Friday night to Monday morning. Because I am so overstimulated on social media during the week between LinkedIn and Threads and TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff. I just need a break where I'm not tempted to just mindlessly scroll. So I think it's setting up those boundaries for yourself where you're like, okay, I'm just gonna log off and force myself to do something. I am a big fan of physical limitations like Brick because you physically have to go hold your phone up to the device. You can't just like, because Apple has it where you can kind of do the screen time, the limits and everything, but those are so easy to override. Where, oh, I can just override this. Brick, you kind of have to physically go do it. So you have to think to yourself, okay, do I actually want to unbrick my phone right now? And that's been really good too, because I'll even brick my phone during the day too, like if I need to get work done and I don't want to get distracted with scrolling. So I think it's just putting those boundaries up for yourself. And honestly, I feel a lot happier when I do it. And even like I'll tell my friends if they're like, "Oh, did you see that Instagram thing I DM'd you?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I haven't been on social this weekend." So I think it's just having that. And honestly, it kind of occupies my mind. I can go read, I can go draw, I can go do something else that's replacing that habit.
Yes, definitely. We got to learn how to detox and take time away. Make sure you're not having social media at your dinner table. Make sure that when you were sitting down eating that you were being mindful in that moment of right now. You're eating, you're digesting, you're chewing your food. Bring your body back to a level of awareness for me, this is my first time on social media and I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah,
I
it
be
is
having headaches.
so overwhelming. It is a lot, like, and everything, just, like, all the sheer amount of information you get and just, like, comments and keeping up with everything. So, yeah, it definitely takes some boundaries. I know people who only go on social at certain points during the day where it's like, "Oh, maybe I'll check it in the morning, at lunch, and then at the end of the day." But I totally envy those people, especially who are not in marketing, who are like, "Yeah, I haven't logged into LinkedIn in 3 months." And I'm like, I was you. I wish I could have that, and everything, or they don't feel pressured to have to post on it for work or anything. So I do envy the people who don't have to have it as a part of their job because it's so much easier when you don't have to do that.
I wish that it can have more heavily impact on the positive versus the negative. I feel like the negative with bullying, with the fear of missing out, and I need to compare myself. I need to be skinny. I need to have this long wig. Like all these things, it drains out of what it is for the purpose of to
Yeah,
create something new.
and I think honestly, before social media became like big tech, I think that was the intention. Like, I think that was the intention between for like Twitter and for Facebook and for Instagram when they first started out. Now, because they're these huge, huge companies and huge conglomerates and everything, I think that's where the plot has been completely lost because it's less about the user anymore and it's more about the profit, and everybody is just suffering through it because there really is no alternative to the big social medias. People are like, I know there's like a couple other platforms like Blue Sky, Mastodon, Skylight, a lot of these like decentralized socials, which I feel is going to end up being the next iteration of social. But yeah, I think they're slow to catch on because like everybody and anything is familiar with just the big popular platforms. So they've been around forever, and so that's where people are gonna go.
Yeah, I actually learned about Blue Sky. It was a couple of months ago. I was following another writer, and she was saying that a literary agent, they had this, I guess it was like a contestant
Mhm.
where they put it to the mass media on specifically for Blue Sky. And if your thing got picked, then you came to this like the next phase, which is like this writing session that they was having this writing conference or something. And then like if your book then got picked in, then that person will then would sit down one on one to see if they was going to represent your book or not. I thought that was amazing that they even had that opportunity on Blue Sky, but that was the first time I've ever heard about Blue Sky. And then that's how I learned about Threads too, all in the same token. So yeah, but like I said, Threads is my jam. I love that you could just put little notes on there
Yeah, no, Threads is
and
a lot of even a lot of brands I've been reading are starting to kinda capitalize on Threads as well as kind of like that Twitter replacement. Because unless you're kind of in the startup world or the journalist media world, Threads is, or excuse me, Twitter, X, whatever you wanna call it, is kind of a, kind of a hellscape to be into. Like, everyone is just like, it's just gross. I'll go on to scroll, but I don't post anything on it because I just like to know what people are talking about on there and, like, kinda what's, like, all that. But I'm just like, ugh, it's icky. But Threads, I think a lot of brands are trying to start to capitalize on that again, and thought leaders are starting to capitalize because, like, being in the marketing world, a lot of like marketing Twitter back in like, I want to say 2021 ish to maybe 2024, it was a big thing. Like, people would get like followings, like threads would like Twitter threads would be really popular and everything. And then, of course, like now we've lost that.
what would you say to someone who wants to get into the creative space, doing what you do in editorial and being a consultant? What would your advice be to them?
Oof. um, Definitely I would say think about the editorial, like tactically, I'd say think more about the editorial storytelling, how to actually use AI in complementary with like editorial judgment skills, and everything. Because now, of course, we are in this mode where everyone is on this fear mongering train where it's like, oh, AI is going to take everybody's job and whatever. I think it depends on the job. I think with like content and everything like that, you still have to have that like editorial oversight. Like, you can use AI as part of the process to help develop narrative, to help get a first draft, to kind of help start the process, but it takes a human to finish the process. So I think really understanding how the tools work and how to like build workflows that incorporate the tools, I think is like really important. As for like getting into consulting, Definitely make sure you have some runway saved up and everything because times are tough out there. Definitely make sure if you're partnered up with a spouse, partner, whatever, like, and they can help you with stuff. So then it's two income versus one income. It might take a while to get some clients because a lot of teams I've noticed are very hesitant to invest in people right now. And even with content, people don't really know what kind of content they need. They think they need one thing, but they really actually need something else. So it's a really interesting environment. It's not to say that you can't do it, but I would say get a really good niche skill set with content, especially. The other way to go is starting like a newsletter or a podcast or something. There is still a lot of money in content from getting sponsored content, advertisers, things like that too. So there's a lot of different routes you can go down depending on what kind of avenue of content you want to do.
So since you touched on the monetization and that is big in social media, can you just give someone some tidbits on how they can do that?
I'm not a monetization pro. I'm still dabbling in it myself. So I'm kind of learning as I go. But like the things that I have worked on and I'm attempting to do are with my newsletter. My newsletter is hosted on Beehive. They have a really great ad network where you can like have advertisers like be in your newsletter. You can do these things called boosts. So I'm playing around with those functions. So like basically get yourself a platform that has monetization capabilities. I know Substack has it too with people being able to pay subscriptions. And I think Beehive, you can definitely do that. So things like that, that's an avenue. Brand partnerships, sponsorship deals where it's like you have enough power where you can prove like, okay, people are watching my videos, my content's resonating with people, like it has good whatever. Then you can start pitching deals and do that. I think in terms of monetization on specific platforms, I know TikTok has some criteria that you have to do to be able to monetize, but I'm not quite sure how big the payout is. I think it works if you have a million followers or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers. But I think if you're a smaller brand with a smaller following, I would say go the brand deal, sponsored content type of route versus, oh, I'm going to try to like use TikTok's monetization, create a rewards program, things like that. And then, of course, there's YouTube too. I know YouTube has a pretty good monetization platform. If you build up your following on there, get enough watch hours, get enough followers, things like that, and you can put ads and monetize your videos that way too.
We always love posing a question to the audience. We make self reflection a lifestyle here. So, what question would you pose to the audience?
Yeah, I would pose the question of really think about what you wanna get out of if you wanna be a creator online, build a following, really why? What is that going to let you do, and what is the reason behind it? Not just, "Oh, because everybody else is doing it," but, like, what is the fulfillment you're gonna get out of it? Because we've kind of just covered over the last hour of this conversation, and there are a lot of, pitfalls, a lot of stresses, a lot of, anxieties, around being online, so really just think about what you want to get out of it. Is it a self-expression thing? Is it a I want to do knowledge sharing? Is it a I want to become famous and get brand deals, Like what does that look like for you? And are you willing to put yourself the discipline that it takes to create content and do that even if you have a 9 to 5 or spend time doing that to reach your goals. So really just think about like what's in it for you and how it reaches your broader self-fulfillment career goals.
And where can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much on all the socials. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, and probably TikTok, but I am also on Threads and Instagram, and then also my newsletter, Culture Slant. I publish there 3 times a week. Monday issue is always a like more educational type of thing where it's more content creation focused. Wednesday is really a cultural commentary essay, and then Friday is kind of a roundup of what's happening in media, content creation news. So if you want more content around media and how it influences culture and identity, like definitely sign up for my newsletter. Subscriptions always mean so much to me.
Yes, independent artists, they need this support,
Oh,
guys.
yes, yes, I will gladly take a newsletter subscriber over a social follower, but both is always welcome.
Thank you for being here with us at Just a Thought and spending your time with us. We appreciate you making time in your schedule for us today and give us some tidbits for the girlies who wants to get into the creative space. Your knowledge was welcomed here, and we appreciate you. Until next
Yeah.
time.
Thank you so much for having me.